I gifted my childhood best friend a memory box of our time together as a birthday gift. Instead of memories, he and his wife were greeted by every single exchange he and my wife had while having a full-blown affair and DNA evidence that all 4 kids belonged to him. And my family is disgusted with what I did and think I went too far. I'm 43 years old and I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone. My best friend Mark and I were inseparable from the moment we met in kindergarten. We did everything together: school projects, family trips, even our first jobs at the same movie theater. Mark wasn't just my best friend, he was like a brother to me. When I met Meg in college, Mark was just as excited as I was. He was there cheering me on when I started dating her, and he helped me plan my proposal. When I got married, he stood by my side as my best man. A couple of years later, Mark met Rachel, who was Meg's college roommate, and they got married too. Our friendship grew even stronger as we now had these 2 families and everything seemed perfect. We did everything together: vacations, holidays, barbecues. Our kids grew up together, playing and spending time like siblings. Mark and Rachel had 4 kids, and Meg and I had 2. It was the kind of friendship that felt like something out of a movie, flawless and unbreakable. Then a few months ago, I was cleaning out the basement when I came across an old USB drive. It was full of videos from my childhood, videos of Mark and me building snow forts, celebrating graduations, and going on camping trips. Watching them took me back to those simpler days, and I decided to make a gift for Mark's 44th birthday, a memory box celebrating our 38 years of friendship. I gathered old photos, ticket stubs, and other small mementos. When I told Meg about the project, she didn't react the way I expected. She wasn't as excited as I thought she'd be, but I figured it was just because of work stress or something. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then one day, while I was looking for more keepsakes in the home office, I found something odd. There was a folder tucked away in Meg's desk. It looked out of place, so I decided to open it. It wasn't snooping, but it caught my attention. What I found in that folder turned my whole world upside down. Inside were printed emails between Meg and Mark going back 17 years. There were explicit photos and detailed plans for secret meetups. The more I read, the worse it got. Their affair had started shortly after our wedding, but what hit me the hardest was a set of DNA test results. The results weren't just for Rachel's kids. They were for my kids too. And it turned out that Mark wasn't just the biological father of Rachel's children. He was the biological father of mine as well. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My best friend, my brother, and my wife had been lying to me for nearly 2 decades. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. At first, I didn't know how to feel. I was numb. It was like I couldn't even process it. Then the anger hit. All those years I spent loving Meg, raising our kids together, it suddenly felt like the cruelest joke. I wanted to confront them immediately, yell at them, and make them feel the pain they caused me. But the anger was too overwhelming. I didn't trust myself to stay calm. Honestly, all I wanted was for them to understand just a fraction of what I was going through. Instead of confronting them directly, I put all my energy into finishing the memory box. I went through everything we had. Old photos from my childhood, ticket stubs from places we visited, little mementos that had meant so much over the years. But then at the very bottom, I added the stuff that had destroyed me. The emails between Meg and Mark, the explicit photos, the hotel receipts, and the DNA test results. It felt like a box full of memories and lies all bundled together. I wanted them to feel just as blindsided as I had been when I discovered the truth. Mark's birthday dinner was supposed to be a happy occasion with our families gathered around celebrating, but instead I handed him the memory box in front of everyone, turned and walked out. I didn't stay to see his face. I didn't need to. I knew what was in that box would change everything for them. The truth would finally come out, and it would destroy everything they built. The fallout was swift and brutal. That night, Rachel called me crying. She told me she and Mark had opened the box together and she'd seen everything. The next morning, she packed up her kids and left, going to stay with her sister. I could hear the pain in her voice, but I also knew she had to deal with the consequences of their actions. But my own family's reaction was completely different. My parents and siblings weren't on my side at all. They thought I should have kept everything between us, that I shouldn't have caused such chaos, especially with the kids involved. They told me I was being selfish, that I was focusing too much on my own hurt instead of protecting the kids who were innocent in all this. They said I should have considered how it would affect them, but it felt like they didn't understand. Mark and Meg had made choices that impacted all of us, and the truth needed to come out. I get where they were coming from. No one wants to see kids hurt, but at the same time, I couldn't keep living a lie. My whole life had been built on false trust, and I needed the truth to be out in the open. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but part of me felt a little relief knowing that the lies were finally exposed. Meg didn't take it well, to say the least. She moved in with her parents and has been bombarding me with texts and voicemails ever since. She keeps apologizing, begging for my forgiveness, telling me she's sorry and trying to convince me it was all just a mistake. But how do you call 17 years of lies a mistake? It's hard to accept that. A mistake is forgetting something or making a bad decision in the moment. But 17 years of secret meetings, lies, and betrayal, that's not a mistake. It feels like a lifetime of deception, and it's hard to even process what she's asking of me. Then there's Mark. He hasn't said a single word. He hasn't called, texted, or even tried to reach out. It's like he's completely disappeared. Maybe he's too ashamed to face me, or maybe he just doesn't care anymore. Either way, it hurts. He was my best friend, my brother, and now he's just gone. I'm left with all these questions and he's not even willing to try and explain himself. Our friends have been split down the middle. Some of them get it. They understand why I did what I did, and they tell me that exposing the truth was the only way for me to break free from all the lies. They say I had to let the truth come out no matter the fallout. But then there are others who think I went too far. They believe I shouldn't have done it so publicly, that the kids didn't deserve to be hurt by it all. And I can't argue with that. It's not like I wanted to hurt anyone, especially the kids. I just felt like the weight of all these lies was crushing me. And the only way to make things right was to tell the truth, even if it meant tearing everything apart. But it's hard to say whether there was a better way to do it. The betrayal was so massive, so all-consuming that it felt impossible to expose it without causing some kind of damage. No matter what I did, someone was going to get hurt. The hardest part of all this is dealing with the kids. They're innocent in all of this, and it absolutely kills me. I'd be the one who raised them, loved them, thought they were mine. And now it feels like everything's been ripped away. Every time I look at them, all I can think about is what happened. The lies, the betrayal, the DNA test results. I don't know how to look at them without that weight hanging over me. They don't deserve any of this. They're just kids, and they're caught in the middle of a mess that isn't their fault. I've been avoiding their calls and texts because I don't know what to say to them. They know I'm moving out, but they don't know why. How do you even explain something like this to kids without completely breaking their hearts? How do you tell them that everything they thought they knew is a lie? I'm at a loss. The last thing I want to do is hurt them more, but I don't know how to make sense of all this myself, let alone explain it to them. It feels like no matter what I do, the damage is already done. Now I'm sitting in an empty apartment alone. My family doesn't speak to me much anymore. I'm not sure where I go from here. I've lost my wife, my best friend, and the life I thought I had. My parents think I made everything worse by exposing everything so publicly, and part of me wonders if they're right. Did I take things too far? Could I have done this another way? Or was this the only way to get back some sense of justice, to hold on to a little bit of dignity after everything that's happened? Update 1. Past few days have felt like a blur. I've been trying to put my life back together, but it's hard with everything that's happened. The fallout from what I did is still hitting me, and I'm not sure how to move forward. First thing I did was meet with a divorce lawyer. It was a lot to take in, but they were clear and helped me understand the legal steps I need to take. Part of that was getting DNA tests done for both of the kids, even though I already knew the truth. But when the results came back, neither of them are biologically mine. It still hit me hard. Seeing it in the black and white made everything feel even more final. It felt like the last piece of the puzzle had been put into place, and the life I thought I had was officially gone. Then yesterday, Meg's parents showed up at my door. That conversation was tough, to say the least. They begged me and pleaded with me to reconsider the divorce. They kept saying I should think about the kids, how hard this would be for them. They even offered to pay for marriage counseling, as if a few sessions could somehow fix nearly 20 years of lies. I tried to stay calm, to hear them out, but it was hard. I made it clear that the decision was final. The marriage was over and nothing could change that. Their pleas just felt like they were pouring salt on a wound that wouldn't heal. I understand that they care about Meg and they want to fix things, but they just don't get how deep the betrayal goes. They can't fully understand the level of pain I'm dealing with, and honestly, I'm not sure they ever will. This morning, I heard from Rachel, and she called to tell me she's filed for divorce from Mark and is asking for full custody of their kids. She thanked me for exposing the truth, but I could hear the hurt in her voice. She's struggling. She admitted that she can't even look at her kids without thinking about what Mark did to her. I told her I completely understood. It's the same for me. Every time I look at the kids I thought were mine, the ones I raised, cared for, it hits me like a punch to the stomach. The emotions are so complicated, so tangled up that I don't even know how to process them all. It's like I'm living in a fog, and I'm just trying to get through it one day at a time. Right now, my kids are staying with me. They're angry, confused, and honestly, I can't blame them for how they feel. My 15-year-old has completely shut up Meg. He has completely shut out Meg. He has refused to talk to her since everything came out. She's been texting him, but he's blocked her, and I think that's his way of dealing with it. He's angry and he's hurting, and I don't know how to help him through that. My 11-year-old, though, is more conflicted. He's too young to really grasp the magnitude of the betrayal, and I can tell he misses his mom. He's caught in the middle, and I can see it. He wants things to go back to the way they were, but he doesn't understand why everything's changed. I've set up therapy sessions for both of them starting next week because as much as I'm struggling with all of this, their emotional well-being has to come first. They didn't ask for this. They didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess, but here they are trying to make sense of a world that's completely upside down. It breaks my heart to watch them go through this knowing that I can't take their pain away. I've been leaning on a couple of close friends a lot these days. They've been my support, the ones I can talk to without judgment. One of them came over last night and stayed until midnight just letting me vent and cry. They reminded me that my feelings, everything I'm going through, the anger, the grief, the confusion, are valid. It's easy to forget that when everyone else seems to have their own opinions about what I should or shouldn't have done, but my friends made me realize that my emotions are my own, and I have every right to feel them. Meg hasn't stopped reaching out. She's been calling, texting, and even showing up at my house uninvited. Every time, it's the same thing. Apologies, promises that she'll do anything to fix things. She insists that we can save the marriage, but it's too late for that. The trust is completely gone. I can't even imagine looking at her without feeling the weight of what she's done. I can't forget what's happened, and I don't think I ever will. Mark, though, has stayed silent, and that's what really hurts. After everything, the least he could have done is face me. But he hasn't said a word. It feels like the ultimate insult. It's as if he's taking the easy way out, leaving Rachel and their kids to deal with all the mess he made. I keep wondering if he ever really cared about our friendship or if I was just someone to cover for his affair. On top of everything, the guilt is eating at me. My parents are furious with how I handled it. They say I traumatized the kids by exposing everything so publicly. Sometimes I wonder if they're right. I acted out of anger and pain, and while I don't regret exposing the truth, I do regret the fallout, the damage done to the kids and everyone involved. My therapist, who I started seeing a few days ago, tells me it's normal to feel this way. She's been helping me work through all the layers of betrayal and figure out how to move forward, but it's going to take time. This week has been a blur of meetings, phone calls, and emotions that feel like they're suffocating me. I'm just trying to take it one day at a time, but it's hard. I've lost everything. The wife I thought I had, my best friend, and the life I thought I knew. Now all I can do is try to rebuild my life for myself and for the kids who are caught in the middle of all this chaos. Update 2. Mark finally reached out, but it wasn't at all what I expected. He didn't call me, didn't send me a text, and didn't even bother with an email. Instead, his lawyer contacted me with a message. Mark wasn't going to fight Rachel's divorce or her custody request. The lawyer also presented an offer for a huge financial settlement claiming it was Mark's way of making things right. I couldn't believe it. After 17 years of lies, betrayal, and everything that had happened, how could money possibly fix this? It felt so wrong, so empty. I told the lawyer right away that I had no interest in the settlement and that if Mark thought this would make up for everything, he was sorely mistaken. I was ready to go to court if that's what it took to make him face the consequences. On the other hand, Meg decided to handle things in a completely different way. She posted a long message on Facebook finally admitting to the affair. In the post, she tried to paint this picture of herself and Mark as these star-crossed lovers who couldn't help falling in love, but who stayed in their marriages for the sake of the kids. She said the affair was never meant to hurt anyone, that it was just a mistake they both made. Her post went viral, spreading like wildfire through our circle of friends and family, and of course it sparked a flood of comments, and some of them filled with disbelief, others full of raw anger. Most of the comments were calling her out for trying to play the victim. People who had been close to us for years were just as hurt, just as betrayed, and they weren't afraid to say it. They saw right through her attempt to justify what she'd done. A few of our mutual friends tried to defend her, but their words barely held any weight. The backlash against her was massive, and I have to admit, seeing her try to justify her actions like this in front of so many people made my blood boil. It wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about her trying to twist the whole story. She was trying to make herself look like the one who was wronged, like she had no choice in what happened. It was like she was fishing for sympathy, trying to make people feel sorry for her, and I couldn't stand it. She wasn't the victim here. She had played a huge part in ruining so many lives, and now she was trying to rewrite the narrative to make herself look innocent. It was like a slap in the face all over again. On a positive note, my siblings have started to come around. My sister, who had been upset with me for how I exposed the affair, showed up at my house yesterday to apologize. She told me that her first reaction was emotional and that she hadn't fully understood how deep the betrayal went. She even offered to help me pack up Meg's things, which really meant a lot. It feels good to have some support, especially when so much of my family is still upset with how I handled everything. Rachel and I have been talking more lately. She's been incredibly strong through all of this, but I can tell she's struggling. She opened up to me saying that every time she looks at her kids, she's reminded of Mark's betrayal. I get that feeling more than I want to admit. She's also been dealing with all the logistics, figuring out school arrangements, handling custody papers, and answering all the tough questions from her kids. Even with everything going on, she thanked me again for exposing the truth. She said she'd rather face the reality now than keep living a lie for another 17 years. At home, things are still really complicated. My kids are still living with me, but the atmosphere is tense. My 15-year-old has made it clear that he wants nothing to do with Meg. He's blocked her on his phone and refuses to even hear her name. I've tried to encourage him to talk about his anger in therapy, but I don't want to push him too hard. He's hurting, and I know it's hard for him to even begin to process everything. My 11-year-old, though, is in a much different place. He's torn. He misses Meg and doesn't really understand just how deep her betrayal goes. He's been asking me some tough questions about what's going to happen next, and I don't always have the answers. It's hard to explain this kind of mess to a kid, especially one so young. Therapy for both of them started this week, and I really hope it helps them make sense of everything. I can see how much they're struggling with all of this, and it breaks my heart. Watching them go through this pain, knowing that my actions, no matter how justified, have added to it is really hard. My therapist keeps reminding me that the blame falls on Meg and Mark, not me, but even hearing that doesn't make it any easier. It's still a bitter pill to swallow. As for me, I've been trying to stay focused on the practical things. My divorce lawyer is helping me with all the paperwork, and we're getting ready for what looks like it's going to be a tough legal battle. Mark's financial affair is still hanging in the background, but I'm not about to let him buy his way out of facing the consequences. This is something he needs to answer for, and I'm not going to let him avoid it. Then last night, something unexpected happened. A mutual friend reached out with some news about Mark. Apparently, he's been staying at a motel across town, and he's keeping a really low profile. The friend said Mark's family is furious with him and that he's basically been shot out of their close-knit circle. Part of me felt a small sense of satisfaction hearing that, but the bigger part just felt empty. Honestly, no matter what he's going through now, it won't undo the damage he's caused. The guilt I've been carrying is still there, but it's starting to shift. For the first time, I'm starting to feel like my actions were justified. Meg and Mark made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. I didn't make this mess. They did, but even knowing that doesn't make it any easier. The hardest part is knowing that my kids, who had nothing to do with this, have been pulled into the middle of all this pain. That weight is always there. Right now, I'm focusing on rebuilding. My sister has been helping me pack up Meg's things. It feels like clearing out the last of a life I thought was real. It's painful, but I know it's necessary. Every box I tape shut feels like a step towards taking back control of my space and my peace of mind. The road ahead is long and uncertain. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from all of this, but I'm determined to try. My kids deserve that, and maybe in time, I can say that I do too. Update 3. I've been so overwhelmed by everything that's been happening in my life lately that I almost forgot to thank all of you for the support you've given me here. Honestly, it means more than I can put into words. Reading your comments and messages, seeing that people understand what I'm going through has really been a lifeline these past few weeks. Therapy sessions with my kids have been a real roller coaster, painful, eye-opening, but also giving me a small glimmer of hope. My 15-year-old, who's been the most resistant to talking about everything, finally started opening up a little during our last session. He told me that he feels lost and angry, like his life no longer makes sense. I told him that I feel the same way, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like we really connected. It was a small moment, but it gave me hope. But it was my 11-year-old daughter who really broke me. During one of our sessions, she asked if she should still call me Dad. I was totally blindsided and just froze for a moment. I managed to tell her through tears that being a dad isn't about DNA. It's about love, care, and all the memories we've made together. I told her she'll always be my little girl no matter what. She ran into my arms and hugged me, and for the first time since all of this began, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could be okay. Rachel and I have ended up being an unexpected source of support for each other. It's strange how going through something so painful together can actually bring two people closer even in a situation like this. We've both started individual counseling, and we've had some really honest conversations about what comes next. Despite everything that's happened, we've decided to keep a relationship so that our kids can stay close as siblings. They're going to need each other more than ever now. Then today, Mark's mom showed up unannounced. I didn't really know how to feel about her coming over, but I let her in because of the history we shared. She handed me a box with every photo, gift, and keepsake I'd ever given to their family over the years. She said she couldn't keep them anymore, knowing what her son had done. Before she left, she told me that Mark's accepted a job in California and plans to move there next month. She didn't say much else except that he's lost more than he'll ever understand. Her tone was sad, almost like she was apologizing. But she didn't defend him. I'm not sure how I feel about Mark leaving. Part of me feels relieved that he'll be far away, but another part of me thinks he's just running away from everything he's done. It doesn't seem like facing up to the mess he created is on his list of priorities, which, honestly, doesn't surprise me anymore. Meg, on the other hand, just doesn't seem to get it. She keeps pushing for reconciliation, but every time she does, it only makes me angrier. Her latest move was sending me a 30-page handwritten letter. In it, she tried to explain the affair, giving me all her reasons for staying with me even though she was in love with Mark. I didn't even open it. I just returned it to her and told my lawyer to make sure all future communication goes through legal channels. I'm done with her trying to manipulate the situation to make herself look better. Sometimes I do find myself questioning if I could have handled things differently. Was the memory box too much? Could I have protected the kids from some of the fallout? But every time I think about it, I remember that Meg and Mark took away the chance for any of us to make our own choices. They decided to lie, and now they're dealing with the consequences. The truth was always going to come out. It just happened all at once instead of slowly over time. Right now, my focus is on healing and starting over. Sorting through everything that's happened feels overwhelming, but I'm trying to take it one day at a time. I've started journaling like my therapist suggested, and it's helping me work through some of the anger and sadness I've been feeling. My kids are my main priority now, no matter what the DNA says. They didn't ask for any of this, and they need stability and love as we figure out what's next. I don't think I'll ever fully understand how the two people I trusted the most in my life could betray me like this.